Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the topic of anxious preoccupied and using sex or intimacy, physically specifically, as validation. So this actually comes from a member inside of our school who asked a question in our members forum, and I thought it was a really important topic to address. And I get a lot of questions about this in general. So I will dive into all of this. We'll talk about why this happens. We'll talk about a little bit about what you can do. And let me know if you have any questions about this, especially in the comments below. Before I dive into this, I'm just going to let you know we have our With You promotion. It is for 25% off our membership bundles. It gives you access to literally every single one of our 40 plus pre-recorded courses with like 25 or so page workbooks. I do 4 live calls with our students every single week. And on top of that, we have a webinar library with over 200 webinars on a whole bunch of different topics. And our attachment coaches run live events. So for those of you who are feeling isolated or stuck at home, you can have that face-to-face over Zoom connection. And you can connect with like-minded people who are doing the work, and you can group up with them and connect. And so, check that all out in the description box below. I will leave the link. So this question says, hi, Thais. I know a lot of men, including myself, have been cultured to use sex as a means of validation over emotional connection. When we feel this urge within us, what steps can we take to reel back our minds? When sex is now literally an app away, what might a 3-step process look like? I do journal the cost. Good job. As well as remind myself that I have to find validation within myself and other sources, but I'm not sure how. I'd love any tips. Okay, amazing. So off to a good start for sure. And let's talk about why this happens. So a lot of times in relationships, we've all been conditioned by like the media. And there's a whole sex sells idea that's being, promoted all over the place historically, and even more so over the past couple of decades. Now, if that's already there, that means that your subconscious mind is basically starting to equate sex with validation, with approval, with knowing that somebody likes you. Sex or any kind of like intimate connection as being some kind of like net positive between two people in a relationship, just on the basis of sex, not on the basis of anything that comes before it. And so basically how the mind works is we are constantly taking in information and we're building associations. Think of your subconscious mind as like an association making machine. All of these associations are being built in all the time. So we have, as a culture, a lot of people wired in that sex means, it's built in with the associations of validation, maybe not confidence, but like if somebody wants to be sexually intimate with you, then that's a good sign that they like you. That says a lot. That means that you're important, that you're worthy, all these different dynamics. So how can we bring this into balance if, like this individual asking this question, you actually want to balance this out? Well, number one, all of our subconscious associations will be slightly different around sex. And what you want to do as an anxious preoccupied person, because some people who are anxious preoccupied might have slightly different associations. This isn't like a one size fits all. We want to find ours individually. So here's how you can do this. Step number one, you can ask yourself, what do I make sex mean? Both in the positive and the negative. You want to find both. Okay. So do you make it mean that you are worthy, that you are important, that you are significant, that you matter? If somebody wants to have sex with you, do you make it mean that, oh, that's validation of that I'm attractive, that I'm funny, that I'm interesting? Do I use that to get my needs met for connection, for closeness, all these different things. Okay. So number one, you're going to write out all of those things, anything that comes to mind. And what your ideal is to do is to question some of those stories. Does it end there? Is there more? Are there other ways to create closeness between yourself and somebody else that aren't necessarily just sex? Or does somebody wanting to be intimate with you specifically mean that you're interesting or funny? Right? And we want to just question some of these narratives that we run and that we've been programmed with historically. Of course, some of them might be true or valid, but we just want to like make sure that we are consciously in charge of our programmed subconscious associations, as opposed to the media, the internet, or whoever else, whatever's been presented to us consistently that has programmed us being in charge of us, right? So step one, get clear, surface that subconscious stuff. Step two, I want you to ask yourself, what do I use sex to meet in terms of my needs? Okay. So does it meet love and connection? Does it meet significance? Does it meet a sense of certainty? And for a lot of anxious, preoccupied people, it does. It's like, oh, I'm certain now because somebody wants to be intimate with me that they like me, that they're interested in me, etc. Okay. And then what you want to do is in step three, you want to find updated ways of getting your needs met. Okay. Like this individual said, emotional connection. So sometimes if somebody has found a way of being more comfortable in their relationship to sex than in their relationship to emotional vulnerability, then sex will be a subconscious strategy to be able to get some kind of emotional connection without having to be vulnerable. And what becomes really important in this dynamic is for you to be able to identify what your blocks are to getting your needs met in forms that are more balanced. It doesn't mean that you can't use sex to meet needs. That's part of like how you're biologically programmed, and that will always be there. But you want to be able to go inside of yourself and go, why do I choose sex before I choose vulnerability? How can I reprogram my relationship to vulnerability? Maybe I practice being vulnerable a little bit more through exposure work on a daily basis. Maybe I practice reprogramming my belief patterns about vulnerability itself. Ideas that vulnerability is unsafe, or if I'm vulnerable, I am weak, or vulnerability makes me unworthy. Whatever beliefs we have that are acting as our block, reprogram that. And then in tandem, you want to be like, okay, the things I need sex for, that I use sex for, if I feel like they're out of balance or they're replacing other ways of getting these things met, AKA something like vulnerability or emotional connection. It's like if I'm strictly using that for emotional connection, I'm not being emotionally intimate. I'm being sexually intimate as like an indirect way of achieving emotional connection. Okay, great. Let me practice doing things that allow me to get my needs met in the best form possible. And I can still use sex for emotional connection in a form, but it's not my only form. It's not exclusive to other things that would also fill my need for emotional connection, like having a deep conversation, expressing how I feel to somebody, sharing about my needs to somebody, opening up more and sharing my history, my past, my fears, these sorts of things. Okay. So again, you can pull that through all the different needs. So again, if sex is also for attention or approval, this person's right on the right track. Give yourself approval or ask for words of affirmation from your relationship. Say, hey, this is an important love language for me. Open up about that. So basically, we're in this whole process. What we've done is we've identified what sex means, and we question some of the stories that may not be serving us. We look at what sex meets in terms of needs. Then we look for the barriers, the programs that are stopping us from getting sex met in the healthiest form. So the example is emotional connection is unsafe or vulnerability is unsafe, whatever it might be. And it'll be specific to you guys. So you have to find out what your stories are that block you from getting your needs met in forms other than sex. And then you want to find updated ways of getting your needs met. You want to practice repeating those on a daily basis until that becomes a new normal, not to the degree where then you're like, oh, I never need to have sex again in my life. You're here to create balance. You're here to create a harmonious, healthy relationship with intimacy across all forms, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all these different things. And that will ultimately solve this problem. So great question. Love the vulnerability in this question. I really appreciate when people come in here and share, their inner worlds. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this is really valuable to you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.